We all carry dreams. Big ones, small ones, dreams we whisper only to ourselves in quiet moments. But here is something worth asking honestly. How many of those dreams are still just dreams? How many goals have you set that never quite became real? Most people believe the missing ingredient is money, or connections, or luck. But today's story reveals something different. It tells us that behind every dream that truly comes to life, there are two essential qualities, and without them, no amount of talent or ambition will ever be enough. Stay with this story until the very end, because what you discover here might be exactly what you've been missing. Welcome to Bright Tales, where every story holds a lesson worth carrying for life. On the edge of a small, unhurried town, where a gentle river wound its way through fields and market paths, there lived an old man unlike anyone the townspeople had quite figured out. Each morning, without fail, he would make his way to a worn wooden bench by the water's edge, settle himself slowly, and sit. And then he would begin to speak, not to anyone in particular, but steadily, calmly, as if reminding the river itself of something important. "You will receive what you truly seek," he would say. "You will receive what you truly seek." The people of the town had long since stopped trying to make sense of him. Some found him amusing. Others found him odd. Most simply walked past, glancing sideways, and moved on with their day. After a while, his words had become as familiar as the sound of the river, present but unheard, until one afternoon, when a young man named David happened to pass by. David was in his early 20s, full of restless energy and unfulfilled ambition. He had big plans and a sharp mind, but felt constantly stuck, as if there were a wall between where he was and where he wanted to be, and he couldn't find the door through it. He had tried different jobs, read books on success, watched more successful men from a distance, and wondered what they had that he didn't. When the old man's words reached his ears that afternoon, "You will receive what you truly seek," something made him stop. He turned. He studied the old man for a moment. Then he walked over and sat down beside him. "Do you really mean that?" David asked. "That a person can have anything they want?" The old man turned to look at him with calm, clear eyes. "Yes," he said simply. "I mean it completely. And if you're willing to listen, truly listen, I can show you how to get there." David leaned forward. "Then tell me, what do I need to do?" "First," the old man said, "tell me what it is you want." David didn't need a moment to think. The answer had been living in his chest for years. "I want to build a successful business. I want to become a respected merchant, someone known for quality and integrity. I want to build something real, something that lasts." The old man nodded slowly, as if he had been expecting exactly this answer. "That is a worthy dream," he said, "and it is absolutely within your reach. But it will require two things. Not talent, not luck, not even money." He paused. Two things that most people have access to, but very few choose to use wisely. He reached out and gently rested one hand on David's left hand. "The first treasure," the old man said quietly, "is time." David looked down at the old man's hand, then back up at his face. "Not time as most people think of it," the old man continued. "Not hours on a clock. I mean time as a living thing, as something precious, non-refundable, and entirely yours to spend as you choose. Every morning you wake up, life places a certain amount of time in your hands. What you do with it determines everything that follows. Most people let it slip through their fingers without noticing. They spend it on distractions, on worry, on waiting for the right moment that never quite arrives. But the person who learns to treat time as the rarest of gifts, who guards it, invests it, and refuses to waste it, that person builds something no one can take away." David sat quietly, feeling the weight of the words settle over him. Then the old man placed his other hand on David's right hand. "The second treasure," he said, "is patience." He let that word sit in the air for a moment before continuing. Patience is not weakness. It is not waiting passively while the world moves around you. True patience is the ability to keep working, keep believing, and keep showing up, even when you cannot yet see the results of your effort, even when progress feels invisible, even when others around you seem to be moving faster, earning more, succeeding sooner. The person who loses patience loses everything, because they abandon the journey just before it begins to pay off. But the person who holds on, who trusts the process even in the difficult stretches, that person will always arrive. David was quiet for a long time after the old man finished speaking. Something about the simplicity of it, 2 things, not 20, not a complicated formula, struck him deeply. He had been looking for a shortcut, a secret, a strategy. And instead, here was this: time and patience. 2 things he already had. 2 things he had simply never used properly. That he thanked the old man and walked home with a different feeling in his chest. Not excitement exactly, something quieter and steadier than that. A kind of resolve. The next morning, David went to work for a well-regarded merchant in town who dealt in quality goods and had built his reputation over decades. David started at the bottom, doing the unglamorous work without complaint. He arrived early and stayed late. He asked questions and paid attention. He studied not just the trade itself, but the character of the people who had succeeded in it, how they spoke to customers, how they handled setbacks, how they made decisions under pressure. There were difficult months where it felt like nothing was moving, like all his effort was disappearing into a void. There were moments of doubt, quiet, persistent doubt, the kind that whispers at 2 in the morning that maybe it isn't working, maybe it never will. In those moments, he thought of the old man's words. He held on to patience the way you hold on to something in a strong wind. Not because it's easy, but because letting go would cost you everything. Slowly, things began to shift. His knowledge deepened. His reputation grew. Customers began to trust him. His employer noticed. Opportunities appeared that hadn't been visible before, not because luck had changed, but because he had changed. He was ready in a way he hadn't been at the beginning. Years passed, and in time, David built exactly what he had described to the old man that afternoon by the river. A business built on integrity, a name people trusted, a life he had constructed with his own hands, hour by careful hour. When we look honestly at our own lives, most of us will recognize something of ourselves in this story. The dream is there, the desire is real, but somewhere between wanting and having, we lose the thread. We grow impatient. We waste time. We expect results before we've fully committed to the process. Time and patience are not glamorous. They don't make for exciting headlines, but they are the foundation beneath every genuine success story ever told. No dream is too large for the person who refuses to waste their days and refuses to give up when the road is long. So hold these 2 treasures close. Not as ideas, but as daily practices. Use your time with intention. Meet every delay with patience. And trust that what you are building, quietly and consistently, is already becoming real. If this story gave you something worth thinking about, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to Bright Tales for more stories that remind you of what you're truly capable of. Until next time, stay patient, stay grateful, and keep moving forward with purpose.